Sales can be tough, and this process that I'm going to lead you through isn't about selling. It is about creating and understanding what are your key relationships you want to build within your business that are going to help you grow that business. When I started as a GrowthX coach, I think it was in about 2022, I had about a handful, maybe 6, 7 clients or customers that I had in my business that were kind of focused. And I used my business to go through the GrowthX program to learn it, to be able to coach it. And boy, it made a difference for me. So I know, and I've seen with some of my clients, that going back and doing some of this work is going to make a significant difference. I've seen it over and over and over. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about, again, to convince you, to have you really think about, we tend to want to jump and take action. And by taking and pausing just a little bit, it'll make a difference. So why does your business need an ideal customer profile? You'll notice that's not a list of 100 different customers. That is an ideal customer profile. You may end up with maybe 2. I wouldn't go for more than 3. What I have found in my business is, if I find, and I'll try and tell you how to find that sweet spot, if I have found the right customer, I don't have to work too hard and I don't want more because I'm busy doing what I've got. And that's one of the benefits. So higher retention rates is part of the benefit of this. And your well-defined ICP will allow you to focus on, this is the value we bring our customers. When you're building a business, when you're looking to find more business, whether you're established, even if you're a nonprofit or a social enterprise, all of those need money to operate these days, right? And so to be able to be really clear on who and what we're trying to go after, it's not about you, it is about them. And what value do you bring to them? And what problem do you solve for them? So higher retention rates come with this, better win rates, and faster conversions. So taking them from being someone that you're having a conversation with to having them come and take a class, come and visit your store, sign a contract for an install for the sprinklers, right? All of that is conversions. Before I started sort of with an ideal customer profile, my runway, do you guys know what runway is? So my runway is, I have a conversation with a customer, and how long does it take before they actually sign, before I get a deposit, before they take a course? That time frame is called the runway in business. And how long does that take? With the consulting and the size of the contracts that I do, my runway was generally 8 to 10 months. So that takes me, my conversion rate was 8 to 10 months when I started. In the last few years, my conversion rate with customers and even new customers that I'm onboarding, because I've refined over time the value that I bring and what I'm looking at and how do what is it that they're looking for, and make it about them, my conversion rate's about 4 months now. I was starting to notice in April that I had contracts that were ending. I'm now full. I don't want to take any more. I've actually had to put people on hold. So that's a pretty good kind of conversion of the projects. And we typically have 8 to 9 projects that are going on at any one time. So, I'm walking what I'm talking here. So that'll really help you kind of do those conversion rates. So what is an ideal customer profile, really? And it is a the more detailed you get, the more granular you can get here. It is a detailed description of the perfect company or customer for your business. Have any of you sort of had a customer or client come in and they, they don't quite have the same values? They're difficult to deal with. They're not quite who they're not ideal. We want to find those that are ideal, that you match in all the different ways. We spend so much of our lives at work. Why would we work with difficult clients or customers or people when we can find those that work well with us? And so finding those attributes of who are you and who do you want to work with is part of this process. And it makes it much easier to be working with clients. And if you're working with clients and you've got the same kind of values and you believe in the same kind of things, you'll find that that comes faster and easier, right? Stacy, you're not going to be converting anybody to coming in to seeing your candle crystal shop that isn't, right? You have to find that. And that should be in any business. What are they looking for? And where this comes from is, what is the value and who has the biggest problem that's the easiest to solve? And it's hard to get your head around this. This is where engaging like a coach might be super helpful for you to be able to have conversations to say, this is how I can do that. So if you have any customers or clients already, one of the best ways that I recommend working on this, and not everybody is your customer, okay? Your ideal customer profile, we really want to find who is it and how do we find more? Get really niche in what you're doing. We want to really make sure that you're looking at it. So, Corinne, you're just exploring the idea. So that's a good place to be because you can really start to figure out, you don't have a customer list. Stacy, you might have a customer list. Andrew, you might have a customer list. How often do you as organizations or people stop for a minute and look back? How often do you think entrepreneurs who are trying to build businesses stop and look back? Or is it, what's next? Where am I going? What's coming? What's happening?
Shouldn't they be doing it every quarter? Every
Uh,
month?
yeah, you should be looking back. Yeah, absolutely. But we find we get so busy, we don't have time to kind of look back. Building time to look back gives you insights, gives you information, and helps you move forward. So, Corinne, you may not have a customer list. Andrew, I'm not sure if you even have a couple. What I want you to do is really think about, and insights come from looking at who have you helped, because you've obviously attracted those customers for a reason, or they like you. So there's something in there that you want to dig into to say, hey, how did you hear about me? That is one of the biggest things that you can do. How did you hear about me? What did I do for you? And if you're not collecting and you're an established business, you should start collecting that data. Be one of the things I'd recommend. So some of the things I've got listed here, I'm kind of talking around this, is you want to really focus on those customers who gain the most value from your product. Where do you give them, not you? It's not about selling you, it's about selling how you help them. What is the best return on investment? What drives their strategic decisions and why are they even bringing you in? This will help you figure that out. And you want to make sure you've got the right product or market fit. The ideal customer profile, and I've got you looking at things here from they call it a B2B, so business to business. And I think with the exception of Stacy, you might, but I think there might be opportunities with businesses for you. You typically will be in a, do you guys know what B2C, B2B, and B2G is? Do you know what, when I say that, what that means? I'll
Not
explain it.
sure.
No.
Okay, so B2C is my business model is I'm a business who's selling to a customer, so I'm selling direct. Stacy, you're typically set up for a B2C business, right? A B2B
Mm,
business is business to business. And again, I would argue, and I think with some brainstorming, Stacy, we could figure out where you're going to fit in the B2B model.
I do that.
Yeah, okay. So figuring out who those businesses are that you're going to want to go to. And Corinne, for doing your safety training, right? You want to find those businesses that you help solve a problem for. They bring customers, but I'd recommend you can gain better volume and more if you think about how do I structure this and what problem do I solve for the businesses. You're going to have people come to you that want first aid. I've tried to be a training partner here and run a first aid business. It's so hard to go find those one-offs that are needing. And, I have 2 people here and 3 people here. But if I can go find a business, I'm finding 10 or 15 that want to come into a class. And that's where you start building the real business, right? Makes sense to be able to do volume. Yeah.
And I've already got some businesses that, have reached
Great.
out to me in the past and stuff. And that's why I've been trying to get that training partnership. And, Red Cross is like just opened up again. And the process is just, I
Yes.
have to say, disastrous. They're not an easy
No,
company to be able to talk to people. And I like, that's been my
it's
biggest
tough.
complaint with them. And I'm just like, okay, I just want to get this done. I have a business waiting to have training done by me in
Yeah.
October. And I'm like, just like, okay, just like, tell me
So
what's going on.
one of the creative strategies that I did when I was starting is like I wasn't allowed, and I've got 21 years experience and have helped build the training partner system and the courses and all kinds of things. Um, what I ended up doing is finding a training partner that maybe would let me go in or work with them. So finding out who has those training partner agreements sort of in the surrounding area, or maybe somewhere else that they're able, maybe they'll let you piggyback and come in on their training partner agreement while you're
Un
waiting to get yours.
Unfortunately, the person that I instruct for, there's no way she would, it's all about
Right.
the money. So, I mean, for me, that's why
So
I'm kind of like, okay.
So are there others outside the area that might bring you on because you don't want to be in direct competition with what's in your community, right? And
Right,
being in Lac La Biche, but maybe there's someone in Edmonton, maybe there's someone elsewhere that has a training partner agreement that is in an outside community that might bring
right.
you on short term,
Okay.
right? Again, think about the problem. If it's not going to work here, then what problem do I solve? Can I give them a little bit in return?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yeah.
work that problem and kind of figure it out, and maybe you can get on to do that. I
Okay.
don't know if they have, I've sort of stepped back from any work with them
No, I
because I'm
understand.
so busy working here, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's a training partner list or if you can go kind of search other communities and training partners. You can always find courses, right? So I'd go search other communities on that list and see where I might find others that maybe are doing some things that you could piggyback on.
Okay.
Another way to work around it and be above board. That's also thinking about regulations for you, Andrew. Knowing those regs and being able to meet regs, you have to solve the problem of the regulations because your organization is driven by safety regs, right? And maybe there's a partnership between the two of you in terms of helping each other in the services. So there's synergy between what you're both doing.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Okay. So thinking about that, the ICP is really about companies. So there's B2C. I'll come back to what I was saying, but there's B2C, there's B2B, and there's B2G. B2G is to government. And that's its own little
Nightmare.
thing unto itself, right? And so those typically tend to be focuses for where might I find my ideal customer profile. All of those are very different strategies in terms of where you're reaching out and who you're reaching out. As a business coach, I don't have a B2C model because there's no point in me going and finding one-off customers to coach. I work with organizations that are looking for coaches and I establish relationships with those organizations. Then I don't have to market or promote or do anything. I just show up and I coach, right? So thinking about how you do that and integrate that. Were you going to say something, Stacy?
Oh no, I just when you said to government, I just said nightmare.
Yeah. I'm doing some work with government and I found not all government is the same, right? So depending on where you're at and who you're dealing with, you're looking for the right people that work within the right and those characteristics. That's why this ideal customer profile really makes a difference.
Sometimes they take a long time to pay. They do pay, but sometimes it takes a long time to get it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's the risk. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's risk with any of these. And so looking back and being able to take a look at that is really important. All right. So next piece that I want to talk about a little bit is in the journey that I've gone on in terms of working with businesses, I find people jump to, I got to start marketing right away. You can, but I'm going to tell you, you're going to spend a lot of money and take a lot of time to figure that out. These really should be the steps that you go through before you hire a marketing firm, you look at doing what you're doing. Like if you're going to do a B2B business, that's really going to influence the messages that you send out if you're going to do anything on social media. What your website looks like, it should speak to your customer, your ideal customer profile, because you want to attract them. So everything that you do to begin to market what you're doing should be reflective. So my recommendation, first step is the customer discovery, and I've already talked about this. What's the biggest problem that's the easiest to solve? And again, I'll give you a couple of examples of clients I've gotten permission that I've worked with here in Alberta, where we've really dug in and took the time to do that. That GrowthX program was 16 weeks of exploring before you start marketing. Step 2 is getting very detailed in who that ideal customer is. That customer discovery of step 1, it's really going back and really looking at, I just want to look at my slides. Yeah, I'll get to that in a few minutes. It's really going back, if you have any customers, and figuring out who's already come to see me. Why did they come see me? Who are they? Because there's obviously something there that's working. They will give you clues and insights on how to build your detailed customer profile. Either things to stay away from, because sometimes we learn from the things we don't want, right? How many times I know in my life, it gets really clear of what I want when I know what I don't want. And sometimes those customers will help you do that. So step 2 is really getting detailed into finding that. Then once you've kind of figured out who that is, you look at developing, and we'll talk a little bit, your unique value proposition and your unique selling proposition. And I'll highlight that here at the end of the presentation. And then step 4 is where do you go find more like those? Where might you find synergies to go and be able to do that? That is market discovery. And most entrepreneurs think, I need to market, and they jump to marketing. You need to do market discovery first. You'll save yourself so much time, so much money, and you'll gain traction so much faster if you can do market discovery as you go through this. Yeah, I've beaten that horse enough. I'm going to move on to the next one. So as you're building a business, what I find entrepreneurs tend to do is you've got a great idea, you want to expand, you want to look at it. These 3 factors are critical. This model actually comes out of Silicon Valley and some of the large tech companies. This is a similar model that really works across any businesses. And you want to have 3 factors here that make your business successful. Is it viable? So that means, are you paying yourself? Are you putting money aside so you can invest in the growth and the development of what you might need to build that business? Are you generating enough money to do that? So is it viable? Is it something that I can do? Can I manage it? Can I scale it? Can I gain access to resources? And then the third, which I think is one of the most important of businesses, and that's what we're going to focus on today as I finish up this presentation, is it desirable? Have I got my ideal customers? Do they want it? And if they don't, it doesn't matter, right? Is it desirable? And finding your ideal customer and talking to them and building through, it's those 3 factors. If it is not viable, I hate to tell you this, if you're having to fund it and you can't pay yourself, you're building a hobby. You're building a hobby, and that's okay. Just know you're not building a business. The other option is, are you trying to build yourself a job? That's different from building a business. Building a business is really about, do I want employees? Am I going to have a location? And am I going to grow this? Either one of those are okay. And they're slightly different. Am I building a hobby? Am I building this, a job for myself? Or am I building a business? And it takes time to build a business. Sometimes you have to start by building a job. I'm 8.5 years into it, and I went really slow. I paid for everything out of my own pocket. I never took out a loan to build my own business. And so it's taken me quite a while to build the business. I built myself a job for a long period of time, but I'm now building a business. Any questions on any of that? Questions or comments? Okay. So we've talked about this already in terms of putting this together. You want to fall in love with the problem you solve for your customers and not the solution. Why would I even say that? What problem do you help them solve? So in the first aid business, Corinne, one of the problems that you probably solve, and from my experience, is people need to have that certification to work, and an employer needs people certified. It's less about safety and more about meeting regulations and being able to have workers meet regulations, truthfully, right? You can say, oh, we're doing safety, but the problem you solve is you help employers keep employees doing the work that they need to do, right? That's a clear statement of the problem. So being really clear on what problem you solve. Andrew, meeting regulations, keeping the fire department away might be part of it. You really have to explore and be able to articulate what problem do you solve for them. And again, there can be a variety of different problems. So Corinne, the place I might start looking for the business that you're doing is to solve that problem is what organizations and companies are onboarding a lot of employees that are having trouble keeping them certified, right? Who's growing in your industry? Who's growing in your area? They're going to have that problem. So that's why understanding the problem is so important, because it's going to help you narrow down who you go after first. Who's your first person or your first group of companies you're going to go after? And same with you, Stacy, right? Who's looking? Well, our earth, our world is changing, and people are trying to figure out how to navigate some of these changes in terms of what's happening. And I think we're opening up to more kind of, I don't have the word for it, but opening up to those kinds of things. So where might those people be going to start to look for those kinds of things, right? So thinking about that. Yeah, Corinne.
Fortunately, I do have a contract already with Portage College, so I'm kind of
Nice.
fortunate that way. So, but I mean, obviously, I can't go to them and say, hey, like I can do this until I can do this. So,
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing that holds some people back at times, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of ready to go, but you're not. And sometimes that is regulation. It's not just even regulation from a company like Red Cross. It's like regulations in your own community
Yep.
with your own
Yep.
counties and such.
Exactly. So are there other areas in the meantime, while you're waiting, getting this sorted out, your ideal customer profile, you've got sort of that waiting time. This is a really good thing to be working on, right? So you've got the one contract, but where are you going to get the next and the next? And what is that going to look like? You're going to have to build business structure and stuff around it. But while you're building the business, you need to be building what market am I going to be working in at the same time. I've seen so many entrepreneurs build the business and they need money right away, but they haven't built where their market is. And so they hit the go button, and then the building doesn't, or the business doesn't succeed because they've run out of money, cash flow, for them to be able to do stuff, because they didn't have the market and the clients didn't come in as quick. They didn't realize they had a 6 or 8 month runway to get that client. Realize that, know that for your business. Okay. So, and one of the things you want to kind of think about is the stickiness of the customer as well, right? And what I mean by stickiness is if you get a client or a customer and they're the right customer, they'll keep coming back. You'll be able to add more services, right? What are the services that they're really looking for? Having them come. And then to your store, Stacy, what is the one thing that people are really, what problem, like what are people really looking for? How can you bring and draw that in? And then maybe you have other things that they didn't even know they weren't looking for, right? So what's that draw? So that could be through doing your events, your courses, the readings, right? Maybe people are open to that. And then you have other features and services. Will they stick? So you want to try and, it's really hard to go find new customers all the time. So getting repeat customers is a really good thing to be looking at when you're trying to. And again, if you resonate at the same place, that really makes a difference in allowing you to kind of bring things together. Next, I want to talk about, is there a tangible value? So typically tangible means money, time, or effort. How are you helping them solve their problem? How are you saving how are you saving them money? How are you saving that company or organization or individual's time or effort? And in your case, Stacy, how are you helping with their spiritual growth, right? People are looking to, I think, in the world to grow spiritually. And so they don't know where to look. They don't know where to find these things. That I think that's part of the problem that you're helping to solve. And Andrew, what is that problem that you're solving? You should be able to articulate that. And is it repeatable? Can you do it over and over? This is going to help you scale. This is going to help you build. But that product market fit, you want to really make sure that you can kind of do this. And looking back, you will see patterns. I didn't even realize it until I went through the GrowthX program and took my own business. When I turned around and looked at who my ideal customer, by evaluating who was coming in, they were all females. They ran nonprofit organizations. They had 1 to 3 employees. They were between the age of 45 and 60. They were within sort of central Alberta when I first started, central Alberta. I can just go through the list of who, even by looking back, I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize there was a pattern there with the customers. That helps me know where to go next. I know exactly where to look for the next. And when I evaluated where did my first 4 or 5 customers come from, in a B2B example, Stacy, it might take a little bit more, but just having those conversations of where are people coming from? Where did they hear about you? Why are they coming to see you? Is there anything they wish they had? Having those conversations, that's all client market customer discovery to help you narrow down who am I targeting eventually. Corinne?
And it just seems to keep coming back to that look back.
There is a
First
really
talked
big,
about, right? Like it's just
Yep.
always going back and looking back, right?
Yes, it is. So I love the conversation, and it has to be data driven. I'm supposed to be done here in like 5 minutes, so I'm gonna keep going. I've got quite a few slides and things that I'm gonna run through here. Data driven it needs to be part of. So step 1 is identifying, and I've talked a lot about this, identifying your sweet spot. So who's generated you the revenue? Who has the lowest acquisition costs or time? What I mean by that is who's come on board almost right away. I have a conversation and they want to sign. That's a sign. Like, what was it that I gave them? Why did they come on board so quickly? Understanding that will really help you. Those that take really a long time and they come to you and then they don't come back and then it takes more time to do it, right? Those aren't sort of resonating. And so really evaluating who's been with you the longest. One of the key pieces we often don't look at, and again, I've talked about it, is who's referred them. How did they hear about you? And so I had a company, they were a law firm out of Edmonton that I was doing this program with. And they were going virtual. They wanted to be a virtual lawyer and they wanted to help people virtually, but they didn't know how to expand. So we did this look back, and they ended up realizing that there was one guy that kept referring their business, referring. So they went and talked to the guy that was always telling people to go see their business. And it turns out it was a real estate agent. I think he was up in the Grand Cache area. And their lawyer had disappeared from town. He'd retired. There wasn't a new lawyer that had come into town, and it was a real estate agent. And he was looking to, like, real estate agents need lawyers. So, and they were 100 or more kilometers away, and people didn't want to drive to sign papers to buy homes. So very quickly, by looking at who referred them and how did they hear about you, this company was able to realize their target ideal customer was real estate agents who were 100 or more kilometers away from a center like Calgary or Edmonton that didn't have a lawyer in the area. And that becomes critical data that then you can go look at. And they found that there were 5 communities that met those criteria. Guess what? They just opened up their market. And they were very targeted in terms of who they were looking for. And you still have your hand up, Corinne. Did we talk about you're good? Okay. So that who is referring you? And so Andrew, looking back at anybody that you're starting to do business with, knowing how they hear about you and where they're coming from and investigating those people and why are they your strongest supporter is really important. And I've talked about the others, and you want to look for those common traits in terms of industry, company size, where are they coming from, technology use, how are they hearing about us? All of those become really strong patterns to kind of go through and do that. John, can I have about 5 more minutes? You kind of wanted me done by 1:45, but we're getting into some really good stuff here. The next 2 steps, and I've already sort of alluded to these, having conversation. You can do surveys with people. You can find Facebook groups where you're going in and asking questions of those groups, or even LinkedIn groups. Conducting interviews, conducting those interviews and speaking with those customers that, like, why did you choose us? Why were we special? What it made? What's really going on in your world that makes this difficult? Helps you understand their pain points. Again, how can you help them? Because it's about them, it's not about you. And what might be their purchase triggers? If you find a large enough problem that you solve, nobody's going to worry about budget, right? If you find the right problem. Understanding what made them choose you, and then analyzing that data and looking for them. A couple places where I might recommend that I've offered and worked with clients, especially if you're going to kind of figure out these businesses, this may or may not work. So you might have to get a little more creative in terms of where you're finding. But searching annual reports of the companies. What are their goals? What are the objectives? How does that fit? Are there any companies who are winning awards in the area or the industry that you're looking for? And who are those? And who came in second and who came in third? Because the second and third company are chasing number 1. And sometimes second and third want to get to be number 1. That's a good place to kind of look. Using LinkedIn. If you don't know how to use LinkedIn, John, I can do a session on using LinkedIn to be able to do that. That's a whole nother topic of conversation, but really looking at LinkedIn and how do you mine data from LinkedIn. Also, Business Link will help you do some market research. So if you're looking for those kinds of things, they offer a free service, and they're a partner with Community Futures, and they can also help. And John, there may be other areas that you're aware of local to Lac La Biche that might be able to help them. But you're looking for insights, patterns, attributes to be able to build that ideal customer profile. Then once you think you have 1 or 2 or 3, like I think it's going to be real estate agents that are this distance, you want to start measuring that, figuring that out, iterating on it, improving on it, thinking about it, and validating that you have the right group, that this really is where I'm going to pursue. Doesn't mean you don't bring in other customers, but this is where you target your marketing efforts, where you want to go, what you want to do, how you want to do it, where you're going to spend. Are you going to speak at a conference? Well, is the conference, like I spoke at a conference yesterday, and it's all women starting businesses. They're not my ideal customer profile. I'm looking for organizations, but I'll go and I'm choosing to give back. I know I'm not going to get any, I'm not expecting any customers out of that. Just as you go speak somewhere doesn't mean you're going to get customers because they're not your target. So really knowing who your target is and where's the best place. So I'm going to just touch on this really quickly, and then I'll summarize. Once you've figured out who that ideal customer profile is, you want to, and in the GrowthX program, this was 3 to 4 weeks where we worked on this messaging alone, finding your unique selling proposition. And you just basically answer this question, but put in metrics. So your unique selling proposition is what makes you and your company different from the other vendors or the status quo, right? Andrew, there are companies out there that are bringing in sprinkler systems, right? That you can get installs, you can have people come, but what makes you different? Why you? What's the value in that for them, right? And let's say you've got 2 or 3 ideal customer profiles you're starting to narrow down. Do this for each. The messaging might be slightly different, or it may be completely different depending on the market. Because again, you're building your messaging for the client. And your messaging needs to be really specific and tangible. So, I often will, when I do this exercise with clients, they'll come back and say, we increase productivity by decreasing costs. If you got an email that said that, what would you do with it? Does that really tell you anything about how you help solve the problem? I delete those. Others might as well. Those are sales emails. We want to get really specific on how we help. And so being able to say specific means I can help you save time. And with a measurement, I can help you save 10 hours. We can help you meet, maybe, Andrew, for you, it's insurance requirements, right? That if you do this, you decrease cost in insurance. So what's the average cost? I'm guessing at what this might be, but what might be the average cost for insurance that you can save the company? We can save you $1,000 in insurance. That's a return on investment. You put us in, we can save you insurance. It actually pays for itself. What's that message? That's more specific and tangible than, we increase productivity by decreasing costs. Anybody can say that. But how do you do it and what is tangible? The other piece you want to do, so you want to look at it from how are you different? So that means you have to do a competitor analysis and look at who's out there, who you're competing with, what other offers are out there, and how are you different? And then unique value proposition. And this is where you look at what tangible result can you get those customers to use your product or service. And again, the same thing applies, specific and tangible, and you do that for each ICP. So I ran through that really quickly. Does anybody have, I'll sort of ask questions because I think we've got about 8 minutes left in the presentation. Does anybody have any questions so far? I know we've sort of been interactive here. Any questions? And then I want to talk about a real world example of where I worked with a client and where he's at. I worked with him about 2-3 years ago, where he started and where he's at. Any questions? We've kind of questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and I'll just give you a real world example and then wrap up. So Virtue Clinic, it started out as Virtue Nurse. This is a gentleman, how many in our healthcare system can get into an emerge department in under an hour? Has anybody tried to do that recently? It doesn't work, right? You can't get into emerge. How many people out there right now can get a doctor? And they're having trouble, people are having trouble finding just doctors. So this was the problem that Matthew came up with, is he was creating a virtual clinic where you can gain access to a nurse that can help you renew prescriptions, be able to provide some support and do some things. So he started out trying to approach the doctor's offices to convince them that they should promote what he's doing. And then he was on social media trying to find clients. How successful do you think he was at trying to hit everybody in the world who might need a virtual nurse? He wasn't that successful. He was having trouble getting clients. So through this process of exploring who has a problem, where does that exist? How can he step in and help? He tried to approach Alberta Health Services. And everybody, Alberta Health Services is one of the only places, and everybody's going after them. And I don't mean this disrespectfully, but they're government and they take a long time. Stacy had mentioned that. I see Stacy had to drop off. They take a lot of time. So he going after Alberta Health Services may be his long-term strategy, but his short-term strategy needed to be different in order to generate revenue. When I was working for Red Cross as well, getting first aid recognized in each province, in some provinces, when I was doing that with Red Cross, Corinne, that took 20 years. So I know this takes a long time to move. So we started exploring who else has a problem? Where else might he gain leverage to be able to do this? It took him a while to figure it out, but in the long run, he was able to figure out a place. So his ideal customer profile, and I don't have it sort of written up because again, I have his permission to share, but I don't want to get too detailed. He found companies with occupational health and safety people who, when someone got a cut on their finger, according to their occupational health and safety policies, they had to go to emerge, and they sit there for 10 to 12 hours. 2 employees. So the person can't go on their own, they have to go with an employee. How much do you think that is costing a company? Significant amount of dollars. Whereas if you go to Virtua Clinic and it's a small injury, you can see a nurse be addressed, told how to deal with it, and they have formed a partnership with WCB that they'll actually fill out the paperwork, the Virtua Clinic, for WCB for the claim, and it's going through. So he is solving multiple problems in an area that decrease employment costs to the employer, the ability for companies to get people back into the field quickly, and to be able to deal with WCP claims that have typically taken them 3 to 5 weeks to get done because they go into the company and then WCP, they can submit them within 12 hours. What a difference. And do you see how I'm using metrics to measure how he's different from the status quo? Not other companies, but the status quo. Do you think he's going to be busy? He's found his niche market. He's found his ideal customer profile. And that's he found what problem he could solve. It's not going to the doctors. He found the niche market of where he can help. Now he's targeted all his sales, all his promotion. He knows the size of companies because only certain companies have occupational health and safety people, right? He's figured out how to do that. And I'm so proud of him that he's figured that out, and it's taken time for him to do that. But do you think he's going to be successful? I think he is. He's going to have trouble keeping up, I think. And that's the difference between, you guys know the difference between a push market and a pull market? So a pull market is I'm coming to you and I'm trying to do sales all the time, trying to sell you on what I want to do. A pull market is if you're solving a big enough problem, they draw you in. You don't have to go looking for customers. They're pulling you into their world. Hey, I heard you do this great work. Would you help me? Would you be able to help me explore? So that tells me you're in the ideal customer profile because they're pulling you in and you're not having. You just have to make them aware that you exist and what problem you solve, and they'll draw you in. That's a good metric to whether or not you've got it in there. All right, so to wrap up, analyze your most successful customer relationships, build a comprehensive ICP template. Ideal, not a million, not a list of 100. You're always going to have new ideas and you can go pursue those once you've figured out who your first one is. You're going to always go add more sales, add more people. They can start pursuing those other ideas you've got. Align your teams and work around the profile, not a number of them. Focus your resources on those ideal prospects, who resonates the best with what you do, and watch your revenue and growth. So I'm Cathy Forner. I like to creatively connect community by helping organizations, entrepreneurs grow and succeed. There are a number of areas that I'm working on to be able to help, and I thank you very much for having me here today.